Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Have you ever wondered about grooming and shaving of the genital area? Is there a moral component to shaving that area? Are there things that you should know before considering grooming in the genital area? Today, we are going to be talking all about grooming and shaving, tips, tricks, and especially what not to do. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the sex and intimacy podcast for Catholic women. My name is Ellen Holloway, and I am a Catholic speaker and coach who specializes in sex and marital intimacy. And I am on a mission to help you actually enjoy and desire good, holy sex with your spouse. Today, I have with me my semi-regular co-host, Kathleen, and we're diving into all of the questions about grooming and shaving of the genital area. This is a topic we have not at all touched.
No, we've never talked about it. Yeah.
So this will be fun. So let's start this conversation by just addressing the elephant in the room of, what does the church have to say about grooming? Because I know this is a question that some of you are like, it's in your head, or maybe it wasn't fully formed, but it was like sitting in there.
Yeah.
And I just want to we're just going to start and lay a little foundation here on this conversation that this is not something that the church has anything to say about. Just like the church has no care what color your hair is or the cut that you get or whether or not you shave your legs or your armpits. Like the church has no care about your grooming of your genital area. So
she's like, you do you, girl. You do you.
Yeah. So we just wanted to address that at the get-go so that there was no confusion later on of wait, but is this okay? Right. Yeah. All right. So why do people groom? Why do people groom? There are so many reasons. There's so many different reasons. One could be just from the woman's standpoint. It might be a comfortability thing. It might be more comfortable to have less hair in that area. It might be a more of a mental comfortability with just no concern over any hairs poking out if you're wearing a particularly low cut bikini or something like that, or just it just kind of preference from a woman, just preferring a little bit less hair. And then from the flip side, it could come from the man's preference. And we'll get into this a little bit more. But, it could be the preference of the husband that there be a little bit less hair there or no hair at all. So people groom for all sorts of reasons. But before we get into some different grooming styles, more on those reasons, stuff like that, I do want to first talk about that the hair in your genital area actually does have a purpose. Yes. It is there to keep your genital area clean. Mm-hmm. It's a great block to any kind of just infection that could come in or weird thing. There is a reason that the hair is there.
Yeah. And
so on the flip side of that, there's no reason that you have to groom at all. But you can if you want to, I guess. I just wanted to lay that out.
Totally fine to do it. Yeah, either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
Either way. Grooming was not something that my mom talked to me about.
Nor I.
That your mom talked to you about?
My mom didn't talk to me about diddly squat when it came to all this stuff. It also
was not something my sister talked to me about. I have an older sister. And I'm surprised she never talked to me about it.
No, none of us have ever talked. I have two sisters. And we've never talked about it. My mom, but again, that was sex in general, right? Just all of that stuff. Nobody ever talked to me about, which is why I come on here and talk to all you.
I know, right? My sister talked to me a little bit about sex, and she's the one who taught me how to shave my legs, but she never talked to me about grooming of the genital area. Ever.
Yeah, no, mine either. So
I will say, one time heard her say something before her wedding. Because she had an appointment for a bikini wax. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah. That's so funny.
Truly. I had no idea.
You had no idea.
I was 5 years younger than my sister. And I think I was in high school when...
That's so funny.
This was how, like, sheltered I was. I had no idea what a bikini wax was as a senior in high school. I was like, what is that?
Like what?
What are you going to go get waxed? I don't understand.
That's so funny. That's hysterical, actually. And look at what you do now. That's, like, amazing. That's just like...
Oh, my gosh.
You know what I mean? Everything comes full circle.
Honestly, my life is, like, such a 180 from who I was, like... junior, senior in high school, like freshman, sophomore in college, like such a flip. I was the sheltered, like
that is so funny
nothing girl.
That's so funny.
And because I knew nothing, when in my freshman year of college, my roommate, who knew a lot of things, let's just
we'll say that. Yeah, that's a good. That's a nice way to put it. Mm-hmm.
Lived on a
very
on a
wise,
different
full of wisdom
plane than I did. She like said something in passing about grooming and about shaving your genital area. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's something I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I didn't say this to her in my head. I was like, oh my gosh. And so then I started fully shaving my genital area.
Yeah, I did that once too. I did it a couple times. I was like, ooh, this is not comfortable.
Yeah, it was so itchy because like the second it grows out, if you fully shave. And then also I got ingrown hairs.
That happened to me too.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It was the worst like couple of months of my life.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe even years. I don't know. It was crazy.
So you kept doing it?
I kept doing it. I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing.
See, I remember when I did that the first time and just like fully shaved, I was just like, as it was growing out, it was so itchy. And it's almost like razor burn. And I also have sensitive skin.
Yeah.
So it was like razor burn and just like a couple ingrown hairs. And I was just like, I'm not doing this again. Like, this is awful. So I didn't. Like, I was just kind of like, and again, like in college and stuff, I wasn't playing the field. Like I, waited till I was married.
Neither was I.
Right? So it was just kind of like,
I was supposed to be doing.
Well, to me, it was just like, no one else is looking at it to like judge what I'm doing. Like, I don't care. So I just like didn't do anything after that, like one time that I like fully shaved. I was just like, this is nonsense. I don't have to do anything. So I didn't. And I got married and my husband never said anything. And I was just like, this is great. Like, I mean, I would shave my bikini line, right? Like, but that was really it. And so, yeah, it was honestly like, years into marriage where eventually my husband was like, I love you so much, like no matter what, but maybe you could consider doing this for me. And I was just like, oh. He was like, I mean, and he had actually, he did present it in like a really good way where it was like, first of all, like, it's just something I would prefer. Like, it's just nicer when there's like less hair. And not even like a full shave, just like a trim, right? Like some like landscaping, if you will. And he was
I gotta say, some of the words that are used colloquially around like cutting your hair
manscaping is what they call it for a man. Yeah, manscaping,
so
which I think is pretty funny. But he was just kind of like, that's just like a little bit like it would be nicer to have less. Like, I kind of prefer that. I was like, okay, that makes sense. He said, but then also like, I like for you to like keep it up is just sort of like it's almost like you saying like you thinking of me, like, and thinking of intimacy with me ahead of time. He's like, and that like makes me feel really like loved, that like you would kind of keep up with this so that, regularly, so that I know you're ready and like thinking of me, which I was like, oh, that makes like a lot of sense. I thought that was like a really sort of sweet way of like making the request. And also like he just like made it known. Like I never did it before because he never said anything about it. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, he doesn't care, so
that I just have to say, like, let's dissect that just a little bit of like how well he approached that, because requests in the bedroom, because this falls into the category of like requests in the bedroom. Requests in the bedroom can often take the spin of, I am so upset because you never do this.
Right.
When it has never been mentioned before.
Right.
And all of us are guilty of that to some level, of like getting upset or maybe saying something kind of like that about something that's never been done. but we've never mentioned it before, right? Like, let's say on a totally different plane, like you have a hard time getting aroused and you think that possibly some manual stimulation might help you get aroused, and that's not something that's part of your foreplay normally. Yeah. It's not fair to your spouse for you to get upset if they're not manually stimulating you if you've never said anything. Like, it's just not fair, right? And so what your husband did in that situation is he was just like, I know that this is something I've never mentioned before, and so I'm just going to lay it out that this is a preference that I have, and here's why I would appreciate it. One, I just like, I would love just a little bit less hair, but also it would make me feel so loved because you'd be keeping me in your mind when you're doing your like overall grooming, when you're in the shower, when you're shaving, like, and you would be like, oh yeah, also my lovely husband loves this and I'm going to do this for him. And that is just beautiful. And like, that is just the way that we should ask for all things in the bedroom. Actually, all things in life.
That's true. No, that's
if you want the kitchen cleaned better or in a different way, right? Like, think about it that way. This is what I would like, and here's why I would like it, and here's how it would make me feel, right? And no blame, no shame on the person for not doing it if you've literally never mentioned it before.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's a totally different story if you've mentioned it before. Maybe that's a great podcast episode, is like talking about.
It's a good idea.
Before we get to the rest of the episode, I have a question for you. Is sexual pleasure something that seems just out of grasp, or maybe something you've never or rarely actually experienced? Sexual pleasure, and orgasm in particular, is something that a lot of Catholic women struggle with. Whether it's because of a misunderstanding of the point of sexual pleasure and God's design for it, or a lifetime of suppressing anything to do with sex because it was bad or dirty, maybe shame from past sexual experiences, or maybe just that no one ever stopped to walk you through an in-depth anatomical diagram and tell you about how female pleasure works. Whatever it is, orgasm is a confusing jumble of anatomy, mindset, partner dynamics, and a lot more. And it's not something that you want to Google, because you never know what you're going to come across on the internet, and sifting through secular crap is just not something you have time for. That is why I created the Orgasm Course for Catholic women. This course walks you through everything from anatomy to mindset to theology to the partner aspect of sex and orgasm, and it is all deeply rooted in Catholic truth. There is nowhere else that you can get all the good stuff and none of the bad stuff. Check out the Orgasm Course for Catholic women at vinesinfullbloom.com/orgasm or click the link in the show notes.
But let's circle back to grooming, landscaping.
Landscaping.
All right. So one of the things I also kind of wanted to talk about before we move into just like some tips and techniques and things like that is one of the places where we get a lot of assumptions about what kind of grooming should be happening and how much and what it should look like is pornography. Mm-hmm. And I just want to like placate anyone who maybe you or your husband has viewed pornography and that is like in your head and that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, pornography is not real.
Yeah.
It is not. They're setting this scene to make something that is honestly like kind of messy and weird looking. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make it look attractive and beautiful. Like, sex is weird looking. Here's a great example. In the TV show Friends, there's like, it's like terrible, but it's also a good example of this. So there's this episode where Ross and Rachel, like, they end up having sex and it gets filmed, and this is like not great. Like, don't take this as something you should do. You should not film yourself having sex.
Please don't.
So then they go back and they watch it. And again, you should not film yourself having sex and you should not go back and watch it. But they watch it and they're like, at first they're like, oh, like, look how great we look. And then they're like, oh my gosh, this is like gross and ugly looking. And they turn it off. And they're like shocked by how bad they look. And I actually think that is an awesome explanation of the difference between real sex and pornography.
Yeah.
Is that it's not like this beautiful thing. Okay, so that's what pornography is trying to do. It's trying to paint this like beautiful picture of something that's not beautiful. And I'll be honest, if you look at like hair in the genital area, it's not like this beautiful thing, right? We can look at the hair on the top of our head and we can make that look very beautiful. We can curl it and dye it and straighten it, or, you know, whatever, right? We can make our hair look very beautiful. But the hair in the genital area is honestly, it's not very beautiful.
Yeah.
And so pornography is like, that whole industry is doing everything it can to try to beautify every aspect. And so they're going to do kind of really unrealistic grooming techniques on these women in order to like beautify it. And so if you have an image of grooming in your head from pornography, just know that it is unrealistic. And unless it's something that you really desire to do, there's no reason that you need to do that.
Yeah.
And I also then kind of want to encourage a conversation between you and your spouse. If your husband has an image of grooming from pornography and wants that, like digging into why he wants that. And again, if it's something that you're comfortable with and you don't have a problem with, and it's something that your husband wants, then that's fine. Give it a try, right? If you like it, continue. But if it's something that your husband wants and you're uncomfortable with that, you have to lay it all out on the table and have a conversation, because you should not be doing anything that you are uncomfortable with in the bedroom. Well, I mean, in any situation like that.
Right, sure.
In your marriage, you should not be doing things that you're uncomfortable with. But like, particularly when it comes to something as sensitive as grooming the genital area, if you're not fully comfortable with the amount of grooming that is like, that's being requested of you, then you guys need to have a conversation about that. Yeah. And just, so I mentioned pornography just to kind of turn the lights on that some of the opinions about grooming could be coming from pornography, and that's blown way out of proportion.
Yeah.
And so just know that.
Yeah. I think that's really good. And I think you really touched on a point that I don't want to like get on too much of a tangent, but that, you know, like the grooming really should be done as like almost like a consideration, right, towards your spouse, like just like to make the act just more comfortable and enjoyable, but not to necessarily beautify. Because I think the point you made is so good that, yeah, physically, like sex is not like, it is weird to look at, right? Like if you're looking at it from the outside, like it's very weird, right? So like but it's like the most beautiful thing as well, right? And why is that? I mean, because I think the beauty comes from the sharing of the souls, not the physical appearance, right? Like that's where the beauty comes in. And so if we can keep that in mind in how we approach our grooming too, right? It's not about beautifying the act in a physical way. It's about beautifying the sharing of souls by making something more enjoyable. Right? Like that's... Ooh,
I love that.
Right? So it's not about like making you look different or more beautiful. It's about making the experience more pleasurable. And that's where the beauty comes in. So I love that you said that. That's and kind of just touched on that whole thing with porn. That's huge.
So now let's talk a little bit about, okay, we're laying that conversation out. Maybe here's the example. Your husband has requested some type of grooming that you're like not so sure about. Maybe you've never groomed before and your husband is requesting some amount, or he's requesting kind of like more grooming that you've done. And you're just like, that makes me feel uncomfortable. First things first is you have to be clear about that. Like, I don't know if I want to do that, dear husband. Like, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that. And like, that has to be laid out You have to tell your husband that you're not comfortable with that. And then listen to why he is desiring that, why he is requesting that, and see if there is some common ground that you can come to. If you're truly uncomfortable with any type of grooming, then it's never okay for your husband to coerce you into anything. Like that's not how marriage works.
Right.
And so, you know, if he's requested something and you just like, no, there's just no way I could do that, then that's it. Like there's nothing more to be said there. The conversation could come back. You know, maybe in a year or two, he talks about it again, and that'd be okay. And maybe it's something that you come around to eventually, right? But one tip I want to give, like, let's say that your husband requests something a little bit bigger, a little bit more drastic than just like a little bit of grooming, and you're like, don't want to do that. Start small.
Yeah.
And say, you know what I am comfortable with? I am comfortable with like a little bit of trimming, like further back. You know, I'm comfortable with trimming everything that's just kind of like on the bottom at those lips. But, you know, I'm not comfortable with shaving any part of the mons pubis area.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? Or I'm comfortable shaving my bikini line a little bit, bringing it down, but like I'm not comfortable going any further down than that, right?
Right, yeah.
Start small. See how it feels. See if you're comfortable with it. You know, I think it's always worth it to try something.
Yeah.
And then you can know, right? Then you can come back to the conversation and be like, I hated that. It was so uncomfortable. No, or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And then again, just like allow that to be a conversation until you guys come to a spot where you're both, you know, comfortable with the amount of grooming that's going on.
Yeah.
And the same goes the other way around, right? We're talking a lot about female grooming because this is a podcast for women, but like you as the woman might want to request your husband do some grooming. The same goes, you know, approach that conversation the way that we talked about Kathleen's husband approached it. And then be open to the fact that your husband might not be 100% comfortable with it, and that's okay. Anything else kind of on that conversation or?
No, I mean, I think that's great. I think that makes total sense. Like, and it's just like, I feel like every episode, it always comes back to have a conversation. Right?
Yeah, right? Like, talk about it.
Which is so funny because yeah, exactly. Like that's just the key in literally every single thing we talk about, because we're talking about like an activity enjoyed between husband and wife. So obviously every single aspect of it needs to have conversation, especially when there's like, you know, personal requests and whatnot. So
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some tips and tricks of the trade. All right. The first thing I want to say.
Yeah.
And I just want to like placate anyone's concern. I'm no longer doing this. But I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that like I thought that everybody just did like a full shave of that area, just like you shave your legs. And so I did that for several years of my life.
Girl.
You guys, this is why we need to talk to our daughters about sex. Because if it is silent, I'm going to get myself on a soapbox here that has nothing to do with grooming. If sex is a silent topic growing up in a household, your teenage daughter, when she becomes a teenager, is going to be bombarded by the dumbest things. Yeah. The dumbest things. Right?
So
and it's like, if it's anything like my situation, right? Like sex, I knew off the table, right? And like that created a whole slew of other issues. But like that was not the problem for me. I didn't have sex premaritally, but I was bombarded with the dumbest things, like shaving my entire genital area for no reason.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's very true.
All right.
But yeah, go ahead. Tips and tricks.
That is what you want to do. If you do want to shave your entire genital area, or
if it's more comfortable for you. Yeah.
If it's more comfortable for you. And this was something that was very uncomfortable for me, and it was such a terrible mistake in my own life. But if that is something that you are comfortable with, there is absolutely no shame. Like, that it is your decision here with the grooming that you do. Mm-hmm. But I do want to give a couple of tips. If you are shaving your entire pubic hair area for the first time, don't just use a razor. It will hurt like no other.
I'm like,
are you imagining?
I'm like just getting like chills.
This was my life. This was me freshman year of college. Okay.
It's like nails on a chalkboard. Like,
terrible. Terrible. Right. Okay.
Oh gosh.
You want to trim it up first, and there are genital hair trimmers, but you can also just like use a small is the key here. Mm-hmm. A small pair of like hair trimmers, and like just go on Amazon and like, I mean, $5, like
right. Yeah.
$5 to $10. It's cheap. This is not like an expensive accessory. A small pair of trimmers. You can search specifically on Amazon for like genital hair trimmers, or if you're uncomfortable with that popping up on your Amazon account because maybe you share it with your parents. I don't know. That's my life. You can also just search for like small hair trimmers or beard trimmers. Those work great too. So, and then no one's going to like wonder what you're doing with that thing, especially if it's a beard trimmer, right? It's like, it's for my husband. He's thinking about trimming his beard a little bit or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone asks. Okay, so you want to trim the area down before you go to shave anything off. And that is simply because like you're going to have snagging if you are shaving long hairs. Yeah. So that is if you are doing like a full shave of the area, or even if you're just going to like trim up your bikini line, if you've never done it before and your hair is particularly like it's normal length, right? It's long. It's an inch to 2 inches. That's kind of, it's all curly, so you can't really tell, but it's like, if you stretch it out, it's like an inch to 2 inches. Trim it up first, and then you can use the razor to get a nice like clean edge. Or if it's comfortable enough for you, you can just trim, and you can trim as close as you can get if that's all you want to do. Again, this is a preference thing. Like this is not, there's no like right way to shave your hair. There's a wrong way to do it.
Definitely a wrong way.
Don't do what I did freshman year of college. Okay.
That's so funny. Yeah.
And so then the other thing, and then I'll let you give some tips and tricks. If you are shaving the lips, if you're shaving further down, right, on the outer lips, the labia majora, I just want to encourage you to be very careful.
Yeah.
That is extremely tender skin. Now, granted, the labia majora, the outer lips, are hardier than the inner lips. But some women, and I don't want to like freak anyone out here, but I have to say this. Okay? I will, because if you imagine it, like you
I'm
just
already
can't.
cringing. Yeah.
Just like FYI, everybody. Maybe just like you could skip ahead 30 seconds. Some women's labia minora extend out beyond their labia majora. That's totally normal. It's within the bounds of normalcy. Oh my gosh, Kathleen is already... Okay, if that is the case, please just be aware of where all of the parts of your body are. You can use your hand to cover parts of your labia minora to keep it safe. You can kind of tuck them back, like you can tuck them under the labia majora as you're shaving or trimming that area. Please be careful. Be very careful if you are doing any grooming. Yeah. That is just the overall...
Super careful. Yeah.
Just be careful. It's sensitive area. It is not like nicking your kneecap when you're shaving.
No.
It is not.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Definitely not.
There you go. I'm done now. I'm not going to make anyone cringe, hopefully.
No. I mean, I don't know that I have any more really to add. I will say that, like you said, like an electric beard trimmer works phenomenal just for like kind of cutting down.
I didn't mention I
back.
meant electric when I said that.
Yes, an electric beard trimmer. Yeah, and they're like rechargeable. They're small, like they're easy. Is what I personally would use and recommend. And then trimming down, and then like you said, then going for the bikini line with an actual razor, like that's perfect. And like usually like above as well, like kind of like a straight line above, like over the top. Yeah. If you ever had a C-section, just watch that scar, which might stick out a little bit. have to do that.
Very good point.
Yeah. So the only other thing I will mention that I have never personally done, but I have heard is wonderful, you just have to have some extra money lying around, is laser hair removal.
Oh,
and you can
that is
do
not something
that.
I've ever tried.
No,
either.
Because again, I just don't have that kind of cash. But some people do, and it's awesome. And I know someone who I love very dearly who swears by it. She loves it. It's great, and it sounds wonderful. And honestly, if I had the cash lying around, I would absolutely try it. So
that is something that we hadn't talked about at all. Is like bikini waxes.
Bikini waxes, like if you want to do those things, like those things are fine. Like
there's nothing.
They're okay. Like it's not like you like. Am I allowed to go to somebody who might like see and like can you go to the OB? Like you can, like it's fine. I don't want anyone to like leave this episode feeling the least bit scrupulous about any of these things because they're okay. Absolutely. So you can go get your bikini waxed if you want to. You can go get laser hair removal if you want to. If you have that kind of coin, go ahead and do it. Like whatever you are comfortable doing and trying, like it is all okay. And this is one of the few areas where Holy Mother Church is basically just like, you know what? I don't care. Do what you want, exactly like Ellen said, you do you, like they're not going to tell you how to cut your hair. This isn't communist, anything. It's just like you can do how you want to do and what you're comfortable with. But that is the key, is doing what you are comfortable with. So if anyone tries laser hair removal or has any laser hair removal, let us know. I kind of want to
or tricks
tips or tricks. Hit up the Instagram and send some DMs, and let us know.
At Charting Toward Intimacy on Instagram.
Let us know how the laser hair stuff goes. But the moral of the story, the end, is just this is all okay, and there's no need to feel scrupulous about it. Just be comfortable. And maybe it's a good opportunity to ask your spouse if nothing's ever been said, hey, do you have a preference for this? I just listened to this podcast and it really struck a chord and I'm just kind of interested. Do you have any preferences? And then start the conversation there. So
I just want to also on the one side, there's no reason to feel concerned about doing any kind of grooming. And then on the other side, there's no reason to feel that you need to do any kind of grooming either. Yeah. I think that's a great idea that Kathleen said of just bring it to your husband and just, hey, do you have any preferences? We haven't talked about this before. But, if he doesn't and you have just no interest in it, there's literally nothing you need to do. And the hair does, in fact, serve a purpose. It's a solid purpose of keeping everything out of your genital area. And so that is just something real quick to mention at the end, if you do a lot of shaving, if things are if a lot of hair is gone from that area, just make sure that you are, keeping your underwear clean, that you are wiping well every time you go to the bathroom. I mean, I know these are very, very simple things, but it's just make sure that you are doing those things because, you don't have that extra barrier then of hair keeping any kind of infection or thing out. Make sure you are, if you don't have any hair, make sure you wear underwear. I think that's the biggest thing here.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, because it... Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's end it.
Here we are.
Oh my gosh. Were you sitting on that?
I was not, honestly. I was just I don't know. I just thought we needed a dad joke, so I threw it in there.
That was fantastic.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.